You trust your doctor, don't you? Of course you do. But what if the person you trust the most, the one who prescribes your medicine, who holds your pulse in their hands, is also the one quietly taking lives? A serial killer in a white coat, no knife, no blood, just a needle and a signature. Today we're not telling a horror story, we're telling the truth. Before we move on to the next part, please give me a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for listening. What if the person who gives you medicine is the one quietly taking lives? Harold Shipman, Marcel Petiot. Two names from two different countries, two different eras, and yet both wore white coats, both carried the power to heal, and both used that power to kill. This is not the story of monsters hiding in shadows. It's about killers hiding in plain sight, behind stethoscopes, behind polite smiles, behind trust. Harold Shipman was a respected general practitioner in the UK, practicing for over 2 decades. Calm, composed, and admired by his patients, he seemed like the last person to be suspected of anything sinister, until 1998, when he was arrested and later convicted of 15 murders. Further investigations linked him to the deaths of over 215 patients, though some estimates place the real number closer to 250. Most were elderly women. Most died quietly, in their homes, with little more than a nod from the man they trusted to keep them alive. Across the Channel, Marcel Petiot operated under entirely different circumstances. In Nazi-occupied Paris during World War II, he offered desperate people a way out, Jews fleeing persecution, criminals evading the regime. He promised them passage to South America, freedom, hope. Instead, he murdered them, stole their possessions, and disposed of their bodies in his basement. He was eventually caught in 1944, and after a sensational trial, was executed for 27 confirmed murders. Many believe the number was higher. 2 doctors, 2 mass murderers. But who was more dangerous? The one who killed methodically over years without raising suspicion, or the one who used chaos and desperation as cover for murder? And here's the twist. One of them was a war veteran, the other a model student. One killed out of greed, the other may have killed for control. So let's ask a question that sounds almost absurd. Who is deadlier, a doctor or a teacher? That's not a riddle, it's a way into the real question. What happens when those we trust the most, those who hold life in their hands, decide that life is theirs to take? In the next chapter, we go back to the beginning, to family homes, early warning signs, and the quiet cracks in personalities that would one day open into chasms of violence. We'll look deeper into what drove Harold Shipman and Marcel Petiot, not just to kill, but to keep killing, and why no one saw it coming. Harold Shipman was born in Nottingham, England, in 1946. He was the middle child of a working-class family. Quiet, intelligent, and well-behaved, he showed academic promise early on, but his life took a sharp turn at 17 when his mother, Vera, died of lung cancer. He was close to her, almost unusually so, and watched as she suffered through her illness. What stood out most was the way her pain disappeared after being injected with morphine. That image, according to some criminal psychologists, may have planted a seed, the idea that a doctor could control not just pain, but death itself. That death, done a certain way, could be a kindness, or worse, a choice. Marcel Petiot's early years were less stable. Born in 1897 in Auxerre, France, he was described as a disruptive and disturbed child. He was expelled from school multiple times for violent behavior, including theft and cruelty to animals. During World War I, he joined the army and sustained a head injury. Soon after, he began showing signs of mental instability. He was diagnosed with mental illness and briefly institutionalized, but still managed to study medicine and become a licensed physician. That contradiction, being declared unfit yet trusted with patients, foreshadowed everything to come. The psychology of both men reveals disturbing differences. Shipman operated with precision. He was methodical, calculated, and calm. He killed by injecting his patients with lethal doses of diamorphine, heroin in pharmaceutical form, and falsified death certificates to cover his tracks. He targeted elderly women, usually those who lived alone. To the outside world, their deaths seemed natural, even expected. There was no blood, no mess, no panic, just a visit from the doctor and silence. Petiot, on the other hand, thrived in chaos. Paris during the Nazi occupation was desperate, and he exploited that desperation to full effect. He posed as a member of the resistance, claiming he could smuggle people out of France. He told his victims to bring their valuables for safe transfer and gave them a fatal injection, claiming it was part of a vaccination to protect them during travel. After killing them, he burned the bodies or dissolved them in quicklime in the basement of his home at 21 Rue Le Sieur. The air in the neighborhood stank of death, but no one dared question it. People disappeared all the time in wartime Paris. That was part of Petiot's plan. Shipman's danger lay in his invisibility. He killed steadily for nearly 3 decades before being caught. It took the forgery of a single will, transferring money to his name, for suspicion to arise. A deeper investigation followed. Eventually, the exhumation of several bodies revealed high levels of morphine, inconsistent with natural deaths. It was a single misstep after years of flawless manipulation. Petiot's downfall was more theatrical. Neighbors complained about the smell and smoke from his chimney. Police entered the home and found a furnace filled with human remains. Petiot fled, adopted a false identity, and lived undetected for months. But like Shipman, he believed he was untouchable. And like Shipman, that belief was fatal. In different eras and different contexts, both men manipulated the systems they worked in. Shipman used the blind trust of a modern healthcare system. Petiot used the fear and lawlessness of war. One preyed on quiet routine, the other on chaos. Both exploited people who were vulnerable, the elderly, the desperate, the isolated, and both used their medical knowledge not to heal, but to execute. The question isn't just how they killed, but why no one noticed sooner, why no one asked more questions, why the systems meant to protect lives enabled the very people who were ending them. In the final chapter, we look not only at the damage they caused, but what their crimes say about us, about our blind spots, our faith in authority, and the cost of silence. By the time Harold Shipman was arrested in 1998, he had already been killing for over 2 decades. The number of victims confirmed through official inquiry was 215, but independent estimates suggest it could be as high as 250. His crimes triggered the largest criminal investigation in British medical history. What followed was not only a trial, but a reckoning. The public was forced to confront the terrifying idea that someone so embedded in a trusted institution could operate unnoticed for so long. The legal aftermath led to sweeping reforms in the UK. Tighter control over the issuing of death certificates, better oversight of controlled substances, and the re-evaluation of doctor-patient dynamics. In 2004, Shipman hanged himself in his prison cell. Some believed it was his final act of control, one last decision, untouched by the law. Marcel Petiot's crimes, though committed over a much shorter time span, shook France in a different way. His trial in 1946 was one of the most sensational post-war events in the country. He played the courtroom like a stage, insisting he was a patriot, that the people he killed were enemies of France, traitors, collaborators, criminals. He claimed to have worked for the resistance, and some evidence supported that he had been involved, at least peripherally. But the bodies in his basement told a different story. His victims included women, children, entire families. Many were Jewish refugees trying to flee the Gestapo. He was found guilty of 26 murders, though authorities believed the true number to be closer to 60. He was executed by guillotine later that year. When comparing Shipman and Petiot, the temptation is to weigh the horror in numbers. Shipman killed more people and over a longer period. Petiot was more visibly gruesome, his crimes more chaotic and theatrical. But numbers don't capture everything. Shipman's strength and danger lay in how normal he seemed. He was never suspected because he never appeared suspicious. He worked within the system, and the system worked for him. He didn't need a war to kill. He just needed people to trust him. Petiot, on the other hand, took advantage of a broken world. War blurred the lines between right and wrong, and he operated in the greyest parts of it. He created a myth about himself, as a hero, a smuggler, a rescuer, to justify what was, in the end, theft and murder. Their methods were different, their motives layered. Shipman may have sought control, even a twisted sense of mercy. Petiot clearly killed for profit, but also seemed to revel in manipulation and cruelty. Their psychology diverged, but the result was the same. Dozens, even hundreds, of lives lost, and a public left to ask how such things could happen without anyone noticing. Some experts argue that Harold Shipman represents a uniquely modern kind of killer, one who hides behind bureaucracy and credentials, who uses the structure of a safe society against itself. Others say Marcel Petiot reminds us of what happens when chaos reigns and morality collapses under the pressure of survival. In a way, they are two sides of the same coin. One is what happens when no one questions authority. The other, when authority no longer exists. And so we return to the question, who is more dangerous, the orderly killer in a white coat or the madman in wartime? Is it the quiet death that no one sees coming, or the loud one no one dares stop? Their stories offer no comfort, but they leave behind a warning. Systems are only as strong as our willingness to question them. Trust is only as safe as our readiness to verify it. And sometimes, the most dangerous person in the room isn't the one with a gun. It's the one with a clipboard and a kind smile. In the end, this isn't just a story about two men who betrayed their oath. It's about what they revealed. About us. About fear. About how easy it is to disappear behind a role. Maybe the final horror isn't just what they did, but how long we let them do it. Harold Shipman and Marcel Petiot weren't just disturbed individuals, they were warnings about how fragile trust can be, about what happens when systems fail to ask questions. One killed in silence, behind the mask of medical care. The other thrived in chaos, turning his own home into a slaughterhouse. Both were masters of disguise, using authority, fear, and our need to believe the best in people. So what do you think? Who was truly more dangerous, the killer during wartime or the one in times of peace? And which crime shakes your faith in humanity more? If you found this story worth thinking about, leave a comment, hit like, and subscribe for more deep dives into the darkest corners of human behavior, because sometimes the truth is scarier than fiction.